Wow. So what a day. What a day. What a day. What a day. So first off, I want to talk about Netflix. And what I really want to talk about and what I want to look at is something that I'm thinking, so did Netflix just crash the entire Nasdaq 100? Okay, Netflix obviously had earnings today. If you haven't been living under a rock, you know this. Also, if you have not been living under a rock, you kind of know that for the last 2 weeks, the Nasdaq stocks and some of the big tech stocks, put on a really big rally. Netflix really didn't perform in that rally, but you did have stocks like Google and Amazon and Tesla put up that monster day. Apple put up a monster day for considering the move that they put in. A lot of these tech stocks were really rallying. Square also had put in a nice move. The Nasdaq 100 had reclaimed the 50-day moving average, shot up for like 5, 6, 7 days in a row. And then now we're kind of getting into big tech earnings season here. So the first one to lead us out of the gates was going to be Netflix. And the market for the last couple of days has kind of been in this little distribution cycle where things have been stuck in these tight ranges and they really didn't have a lot of room to expand. So like even when they did get a good jump off of the opening bell, like I know yesterday Amazon and Google put up some very nice moves right out of the gates, 10, 15 minutes, and then immediately just sold off for the rest of the day. So same thing with the Qs. The Qs have kind of been, futures have been coming in a little hot. By the time that pre-market rolls around, these things are just, really folding under. And the stocks have kind of reflected that. So I think that the overall market kind of wanted to see what Netflix was going to do with their earnings. I think that if Netflix really would have blown out their earnings and put out a good summary going forward, and the stock rallied, let's say to that 570, 590 area, 564, 570 area, there was a lot of call option coming in for that. And I just feel really, really bad for everybody that did put on those big bets going into earnings. I typically really don't like to play earnings just for the sole fact. I mean, as of late, 9 times out of 10, every time I think about, a stock doing really good off of earnings and then I play through earnings, I've just been, sort of hosed. The only exception to that rule was, what was it? Chewy actually put up a good after earnings kind of held for a day or two. So if you did hold some contracts or shares overnight, you were able to collect your profits in the morning. However, getting back to Netflix here, so I'm just going to read a little bit of the announcement. We kind of already know if you've been following along, but Netflix shares are falling sharply late trading day Tuesday after streaming video company posted disappointing subscriber growth for the March quarter. For the period, Netflix added 4 million new net subscribers, falling well short of the company's guidance target of 6 million, and Netflix sees just 1 million net additions in June quarter. Netflix finished March with 208 million subscribers, up 14% from a year ago. But we already know that a lot of that is due to the pandemic and COVID and a lot of people being home. Yada, yada, yada. We believe that paid membership growth slowed due to big COVID-19 pull forward in 2020. You get the gist. For the March quarter, Netflix reported a revenue of 7.6 billion, up 24% from a year ago. Again, but this also has to take in mind that a lot of people were home, a lot of people were cooped up, a lot of people were streaming shows and watching things on Netflix because they were home a lot more. Now with us getting back to the reopening phase here, the market is kind of saying, hey, well, their subscriber base is going to go down, their revenue is going to go down just due to the fact not as many people are going to be at home sitting on the couch all day. Netflix sees June quarter revenue of 7.3 billion, just below the current Wall Street consensus at 7.4 billion, with profits of 3.16 a share, above the current street estimate of 2.69 a share. Profits for the quarter included a $253 million non-cash foreign exchange related gain tied to the company's euro debt. Netflix said average revenue per membership was up 6% year over year and 5% adjusting for currency. Operating income was $2 billion, more than doubling from a year ago and ahead of expectations due to the timing of its content spend, Netflix said. Netflix had 692 million in free cash flow in the quarter and said it expects to be cash flow break even for the full year. Netflix also said its board has authorized a 5 billion stock buyback program with purchases to start in the current quarter. So this is what really is going to sell this stock off here. So let's go ahead and look at the chart. As you can just see, this really, really nasty red candle right after they reported earnings. I mean, this stock closed at 549 and it got all the way down to 480. That's a 50-point move. So congratulations to any one of you guys who played this to the downside, took maybe some short positions or took some puts to the downside in anticipation of a sell-off. I believe that those, are going to be looking really, really nice for you in the morning. However, if you are looking to short this in the morning or you're looking to get some puts in the morning, you know what? I would just stay away from Netflix altogether until they can sort of, level themselves out. It's gonna be a little bit of time before. I mean, this chart is broken. So if I go to the daily chart here, which is not going to show this red candle here, but the daily chart, I mean, not only did they break through the 50-day moving average, the 100-day moving average, all of the Bollinger Bands, they put in a low down here. This red trend line that I drew, this is the low that it put in right now after earnings. I mean, so this chart is just absolutely destroyed. I mean, I'm sure from right now it's sitting at 493. I'm sure from 493 to 500, there's some room. From 500 to 514, there's some room. But are you going to get bounced around? Is this thing going to chop you up? Yeah. So I really would just stay out of Netflix at all costs right now. I mean, there's some other options to the downside that you can be looking at. And just due to the fact that the premiums and the IV is going to be sky high, it's going to be almost impossible to make some money unless you're a really, really experienced day trader and you can kind of pick your spots accordingly, maybe on the 5-minute channel or the 60-minute chart. But other than that, if you're new and you're just starting out and you're like, oh, hey, Netflix is down $50, I'm going to short this thing. It's going to go down another 50. This thing could just bounce around and, sort of chop you up and eat away at your premium. But as far as it, killing the Nasdaq, I mean, if we take a look at the Qs and I go over here to the 5-minute, let's go to the 5-minute chart here. So as soon as Netflix reported earnings, that stock closed today at about 336.41, and as soon as Netflix reported earnings, it's just sold off all the way here into this lower Bollinger Band, kind of caught it as a level of support here. But I mean, it sold off $2 here on the Nasdaq, and not to say it's not going to sell off more after hours and in the pre-market. Right now, futures were finished the day down 162 points. Just absolutely horrible. So if I go back to the daily chart on the Qs, okay, one of the big levels that we really need to look for on the Qs, we did lose at 337. We lost a 10-day moving average. So for me personally, this is going to short term. I'm not talking long term because the Qs are still well over the 50-day moving average. But short term right now, there's a lot of stocks that are down at the bottom of their channels that potentially could be breaking down and testing some lower support levels. So one of the next levels that I'm going to really start to watch for the Qs is going to be, 334, 335 area, and then see if it wants to test this 330. In my opinion, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy who likes to trade stocks, but I do believe that we are going to test this gap fill here, maybe into 331, 328 area. Remember, the 50-day moving average is still currently sitting at 324. So overall, the big picture, even though the stock market has been trading sideways and some stocks have been down, it is still not in bearish context just yet. Not until we break below that 50-day moving average, I'm going to start to, distinguish if the sentiment is, more bearish. But right now, I mean, you can see if you just take a look, we're still on this uptrend. Are we consolidating? Are we in a distribution phase, or is this starting to roll over? Okay, you can see now that we reached the top here at 342 3 days ago, and then it's sort of been rolling over ever since. So could this touch 330, 331 tomorrow or going on to the end of the week? I believe that it will, and I believe that if it does, a lot of these big tech stocks are going to follow along with that. And if they're at the bottom of their channels, if I can just pull up a big one that had a monster run, something like Amazon, as you can see here, Amazon also lost a 5-day as well as a 10-day supply zone here, closed below those levels. So for me tomorrow, if Amazon was to start taking out 33.15, Okay. If it's to start taking out 33.15, this thing has a lot of room down to the 20-day supply at 32.73. So if you are thinking about going short or buying some put options to the downside, if the Nasdaq is weak, that would be a major level that you would want to look at, is going to be the 33.13, 33.10, let's call it for the sake of the video. If it really starts to take out this whole channel here, you can see it's got a lot of room down. Now, if you're a new trader and you got a small account, you really don't want to be taking on trades that don't have a lot of maximum potential. So if I stretch this out so you can see it a little bit better here, you know, if you take out 313.16, you've got a lot of room to the downside. If you take this level out here, you've got about from 32.70, you got all the way down to 32.33. I don't think that it's going to get there all in one day if it does decide to test those back levels, but you have to look at the big picture. Is Amazon, you know, selling off? Is it going to go all the way back down? No, because of the fact that even if Amazon drops another 100 points, the breakout on Amazon was the 50-day moving average, and that is right here. If we go back all the way to, you know, the beginning of April, that breakout was at 31.32. At 31.32, this big candle that it put out is the breakout. So if you've been long and you've been riding this thing, I think it's probably a smart time to start taking some profits and locking in those gains, just due to the fact that you don't want this thing to come all the way back down and you to start losing your gains. I think that if Netflix wants to do an even bigger downturn, I think that it would really have to break below 3,200. I don't really see it doing that. I think that it might get down here and retest this 32.70 and 32.36 before it starts to curl back around as earnings season starts to get behind us for big tech. But today is the first day that big tech is opening up with earnings. So just be cautious going to the upside. Just, I don't want a lot of people thinking, oh, hey, Amazon was 3,400 a couple of days ago. It's cheap right now. Yeah, it's cheap. It's down $70. But if you just jump in blindly and you try to get in because you're like, oh, it's down 70 points, I'm going to make my money back here. Well, you've also got about, you know, close to 50 points to the downside as well. So for me, before I think about going long, I'd really like to reclaim the 10 and the 5-day moving average. But for me personally, I don't think Netflix is a long until it gets back above this linear regression line and gets to about 3,400 again. From 3,400, you have room to 3,430. And then from 3,430, you've got room all the way up to 3,500. So right now, I would be thinking Amazon to the downside just to retest this 20-day moving average here, just due to the fact that you got 50 points to the downside. So I think we are in for a bloodbath the rest of the week on the Qs. You know, but I could be wrong. But the way it's looking, it does look like the market wants to test some of these lower support levels here. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. What it is a lot of people are taking profits. I mean, you know, a lot of people got in on the breakout here at 3,000. A lot of people got in on the breakout here of the 50-day at 3,100. So they're up 200 points. Okay, they're up 200 points. Just like on the Qs on the Nasdaq, you have the breakout was here. The breakout was at 314 and 324. At 324, we rode all the way up to 342. That's a 20-point move. This is some profit taking here. This is back testing some of these support levels. And right now they're not holding up that well. So, you know, the 5-day is just the short-term sentiment. I just use that mainly for, you know, intraday day trading. The 10-day is what I really use for swing trading, but right now we are below the 10 days. So right now it's looking like we want to come back down here and test 331. I really don't want to swing trade anything long until I see this start to find a bottom and start to curl back around. I hope that helps everybody. Just be cautious. Again, stay away from Netflix. That thing's going to need to fizzle its way out. I mean, it's already back up to 495 now. So from a low of 480 to 495, does this thing get over 500? Yeah, I'm sure it does, but it also has room back down to 480. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're doing your chart work. There's a lot of good chart setups. I'll be making a few more videos just going over those. If you guys want to ask any questions or you want to see more videos, or you have a question on a particular stock that you're interested in playing, in the link below in the description below, I'm going to include a link to the Discord. You can join my Discord. Just started it up. I'll be adding content there on the daily, as well as some signal alerts of things that I'm looking at as well. So I hope everyone has a good day tomorrow. Remember to be patient. Let the market kind of play its way out. Just because you want a stock to go up doesn't mean that it has to. And just because you want a stock to go down doesn't mean that it can't bounce and go back up. So I hope everyone has a good night, and just kind of do your chart research tonight.